Room 5, time for Wonderland. This is episode 10. First chapter is called Rose. It was true that Rose had done the special handshake when they caught Henry, but deep down inside, she had been hoping that Mavis's plan wouldn't work. She knew that wasn't very nice, but it was true. And just the thought made Grace's silver dollar grow heavy in her pocket. Why couldn't she be happy they had finally caught Henry? But Rose, being Rose, couldn't stop her worried thoughts from creeping in and planting a question. Like, how in the world could they get Henry out of the woods and up the gatehouse without somebody seeing them? And what if that somebody was nosy Amanda? Even worse, what if that somebody was her mother? So even while she was slapping and snapping and fist pumping with Mavis, Rose was feeling a little sorry that the plan had worked. But here she was, running along behind Mavis with Henry, hoping and praying that nobody saw them. As they ran beside Amanda's wrought iron fence, Rose kept her eyes to the ground, not daring to look up and see Amanda standing in her yard. Then as they ran up the edge of the road, Rose's heart nearly thumped clean out of her chest, while she said a little prayer that her mother's shiny black car would not appear. But besides her thumping heart, Rose had a little niggle about Henry. There was something about Henry that was bothering her, something she thought should maybe tell Mavis about. When they reached the gatehouse, Rose said, Mavis? But Mavis opened the screen door and said, Okay, cross your fingers, here we go. When Mavis stepped through the door with Henry, Rose hollered, Wait, I think... But Mavis and Henry had already disappeared inside. Rose crossed her fingers and stepped inside behind them. Henry had made a big mistake. He should have ignored that delicious food and stayed hid in the bushes. He should never have trusted that wild-haired girl. He shouldn't have run far away from that wrought iron fence when that freckled girl lived. He should have run further away from Wonderland, but he hadn't. And now here he was, inside a small building with a grey-haired man who looked quite surprised. Mavis. Ta-da! Said Mavis, sweeping her arms out towards Henry. What in the name of sweet Bessie McGee is that? Mr. Duffy stared at Henry. Mavis grinned. A dog, she said. A really sweet dog who needs a home. Right, Rose? Rose looked from Mr. Duffy to Henry and back to Mr. Duffy. Right. I know it's kind of funny looking, Mavis said. So skinny, but he's nice. Where in tarnation did you all find that mongrel? Mr. Duffy walked slowly around the gatehouse, inspecting Henry from a distance. Henry sat beside Mavis, watching Mr. Duffy, looking kind of pitiful. In the woods, Mavis said. He's been there for a long time. That's why he's so skinny. He needs a home. Right, Rose? Rose nodded. And he has tattoos on his ears, Mavis said. I bet you never saw that before. Mr. Duffy raised his eyebrows. Tattoos? Yeah, look. Mavis flipped Henry's ears over and showed Mr. Duffy the tattoos. 117E 51549. Mr. Duffy squinted down at Henry's ears. Then he straightened up, took his cap off, scratched the top of his head and said, That dog's from Wonderland. Rose. Wonderland? Mavis said. Yep. Mr. Duffy put his cap back on and nodded towards Henry. That dog's from Wonderland. Or my name ain't Duffy. What's Wonderland? Mavis asked. But Rose knew what Wonderland was, which is why she had that little niggle about Henry. Mr. Duffy jerked his head towards the door. Dog track up yonder on the other side of the highway, he said. What's a dog track? Mavis asked. But Rose knew what a dog track was. Rose knew because her Uncle AJ went there and wasted his hard-earned money. At least that's what Rose's mother always said. It's humiliating to know that my own brother goes to the dog track and wastes his hard-earned money. She often snapped when Uncle AJ came over. Mr. Duffy explained Wonderland to Mavis, how the dogs raced around the track, chasing a stuffed rabbit on a pole, how people went to Wonderland to watch the dogs race, to bet money on them, how Henry must have run away from Wonderland and how he would have to go back. Mavis's face fell. "But how do you know he came from there?" he said. "It's as plain as the tail on a rattler," Mr. Duffy said. "He's a greyhound, for one thing, and those ear tattoos, for another. Sure sign of a racer." "What do they mean?" Mavis rubbed the numbers on Henry's ears. "I'm not exactly sure, but I've seen plenty of them." Mr. Duffy went over to his desk, dropped into his chair with a groan. "I tossed away more than a few dollars on that track back when I was young and dumb." "You did?" Mavis said. Mr. Duffy nodded. "I sure did. And Edna, sweet as pecan pie Edna, she'll get mad as all get out. Wouldn't say pea turkey squat to me for days." Mavis kissed Henry on the nose. He must have liked being kissed, because he snuggled against her shoulder and licked her on her cheek. "Aren't you going to keep him?" Mavis asked. Mr. Duffy shook his head. "That dog's not mine to keep," he said. "He's got to go back to where he came from." And that was that. Mr. Duffy called Wonderland to come and get Henry.